All right, welcome everyone. It is such a pleasure to have you all here, and I am incredibly thankful to our guests, but also to all students and faculty and members of our community that have joined us today to celebrate not only Black History Month, but also Black women by highlighting the experiences of two leaders in the areas of educational leadership and law. So I can't be any more thankful if I possibly could. It's so good to see both Dr. Pierre-Jerome and Colette Wagarin here with us today. I'm going to formally introduce them in a moment, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about, give some sort of background information in both the fields of education or education leadership and law. And of course, I'm Stacy Salerno, professor of sociology at Broward College in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, or actually I'm in Coconut Creek, but sort of same region. And again, so excited to have everybody here. So I'm going to get started by giving everyone an idea of the lens, right, through which we're going to have this conversation. This event is being hosted by the Sociology Club at Broward College North Campus. So we're going to be, examining these two fields and the experiences of these two women in these two fields through the lens of sociology, a sociological lens, and more specifically, looking at it from an intersectional lens, right? Intersectionality. So what that means is that both of our guests have had very, what's the word I'm thinking of? They have experienced, they have gone through the trajectory that they have gone through to achieve what they have achieved and to arrive at the position that they have arrived as both women and Black women, right? So both at, through the intersectional lens of gender and race. And so their experiences are, shaped by that. Intersectionality is a lens, is a concept, a theoretical lens that was created by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who teaches at Columbia Law School. And, the way that she defined this term or this theoretical perspective is a lens through which we can better understand how our identities intersect to create our lived experiences. So that means that sometimes we have disadvantages because of our identities and sometimes we have advantages. I'll use myself as an example. I do this with my students all the time. As a woman, I am, at times at a disadvantage in our society. It's, a fact, right? Women are paid less, women are more likely to experience violence, right? But at my race as a white person, I have advantages in this society. So those two identities intersect to create my reality, right? In these two fields, both education and law, I do want to give some information to just kind of let you all know where we stand. So I'm going to start with schools in the US. So school women, 54% of principals in the US are women. Of those, only 13 are women of color. So there is an underrepresentation, right? In terms of leadership, in terms of positions like being a principal and leading schools. And we need representation because we know, right, as sociologists and also as educators, that it is important to have people of color in positions of leadership within the school system. Studies show us that children of color do better, perform better, have more resources within the school system when teachers and administrators are like them, right? They can look up to them, they see someone like them. And so there are those advantages, not to mention in a study by Spicer, for principals who are women and who are Black women, bring to the table a specific type of leadership, right? That's not there otherwise. A lot of principals who were interviewed by this educational research in this particular study, spirituality was a major element in the lives of women who were leaders within the school system. So not only were, and that also comes with mentorship and, being creative, right, when facing obstacles. So we're going to hear from Dr. Pierre-Jerome on her experiences and her trajectory, maybe a little bit from college to today, whatever she wants to share with us. What we're looking for is, kind of having an understanding of any obstacles that she might have faced and difficulties, how she overcame them, and if she has any advice. And then when we talk to Colette Wagarin, she is she is an attorney. She's a partner at a law firm in Chicago. And I'm going to, again, formally introduce both of these women in a second. But just to give you a little bit of background in the field of law, only 5% of attorneys in the US are Black, and less than or around 2% of attorneys are Black women, but less than 1% are partners. So when we talk about representation, this is a crisis, right? In the criminal justice system, particularly, right? We need more representation. There is structural racism in the criminal justice system, like there is in education as well. And so representation matters, right? We need Black women in positions of power and leadership in both of these fields. All right, so enough about all of that. I'm going to introduce our speakers, and I'm going to start with Dr. Joan Pierre-Jerome. Dr. Pierre-Jerome is a principal at J.C. Mitchell Elementary School in Boca Raton, Florida. She was born to Jamaican parents in New York, where she lived until she was 10. Then she moved to Broward County, where she graduated from high school. She went to University of Florida, where she got both, yes, go Gators, right? Where she got both a bachelor's and a master's degree in education. And she holds a doctorate of education and educational leadership from Lynn University. Welcome, Dr. Pierre-Jerome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, Dr. Stacy. I first have to thank you for this opportunity. I'm feeling very old because I remember when Stacy became a teacher at Boca High, and when she was there, Colette was our student. So I'm throwing that out there, but I thank you for this opportunity. And I'm listening to you talk about the statistics, and I didn't realize it was only 13% of women of color were in the principalships. I'm surprised at that, I guess, because I look at my group of support, and there are more people who look like me now than when I started education. This is my 30th year. My 22nd year as an administrator. And when I talked to Dr. Stacy and said, what do I talk about? She says, share your journey. And I think for me, when I think about my journey, I have to think about my purpose. And coming from Jamaican parents, I felt that I had to learn to fit into different groups, because my parents, I was first generation American. My parents didn't understand the American school system because they were Jamaican and they went to England, and they had a child born in Jamaica, a child born in England, a child born in America. So I was the one who was born in America. So I've had to be very observant of different cultures and take it all in to see where I fit in. And I think that has been something important to me from the beginning. I've always been an observer. And even today as a principal, I'm an observer of my students. I'm an observer of my teachers and how they interact with my students. I'm an observer of my parents to see, okay, which parents feel marginalized, and they just don't feel like they're comfortable in the school setting, and which parents feel like, everything is about them. And so I think my whole journey has always had to be about relationships and knowing how to project myself, being careful not to be forceful and not to be seen as the angry Black woman, but having to always be careful. I'm one of 4 principals of color in Boca Raton. That says a lot itself. When I started, it was only 2 of us. And so it's been very, very interesting. But I think I have to make it my life journey to equip the teachers that work with me to make sure that they see the whole child, the whole parent, and not just, they just have to understand. That's my issue. As a child, I went to an all Black school, and then I went to a school where I was the only Black person in honors classes. And I remember how that felt, all eyes on me, when I was the only one. And I was smart, but I felt at times that I had to not necessarily show how smart I was when I was with certain peers. And I had to learn to always fit in. And I think that's the same for me now. I've just had to always learn to fit in. And now that I'm older, I'm bolder in my conversations that I'm having with my colleagues. I'm bolder about the conversations about what's going on in the news and how is that impacting the students that we're working with right now. The teachers have to understand the lessons that the children are bringing forth. And I think that has made me, I have so much work to do as a principal. I'm not the best principal, but I think I'm an observant principal because of my life experiences, because of the fact that I came into administration young. I was 29, and I still remember people thinking that my white secretary was the principal and I was her secretary. And I remember always having to just be aware of how I present myself and how I represent myself and how I fight for my kids in an appropriate way, so that when Dr. Stacy, my time is done, I want them to say, not that she was a good Black administrator, but she was a good person who worked with everybody, who built relationships. Because if I didn't have a relationship, you wouldn't have called me today. And you know me as I was your supervisor and I was the principal of your child, of both your children.
Yep.
Colette, I was her assistant principal, and now I'm a colleague, a professional colleague. So I think if anything, just know that we are a small part of something that's so big that we just have to see how other people feel and take your life experiences and use it for good. I don't know if that's making sense, but it's just about relationships. That's everything. That's everything. And in education, if anyone is looking to be an educator, you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have the ability to connect with the community, with the teachers, with the parents, with the students, most of all, then you're not going to be successful and you're wasting your time. So, I know that's all I had, Dr. Stacy.
That is perfect. Also, it made complete sense to me. Everything you said is absolutely on. I mean, it makes it's very clear. And someone reacted with a clap. Yes, I do have to say that that's one thing that's very true about you, is that you humanize everybody. You see the human part of every person in your life, your students, your teachers, the people that work with you. So I can personally attest to that. But yes, what a fantastic message. And thank you. I mean, I think you really hit it on the nail, as they say. I'm probably getting that wrong. I say all those expressions wrong, but very much appreciate your input and what you said. We're still a little bit, yes. Raymond says, thank you. Student says, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mrs. Wogaren and have her, share her experiences And then what we'll do is we'll have a few minutes to ask questions towards the end. All right, so Colette, who, by the way, Dr. PJ was a teacher when I was there. She was a teacher.
Well, she was a student when I first got there.
Yes.
So I'm much older than you, Dr. Stacy.
Well, no one would know that. No one would know that. All right. So Colette represents clients in complex civil litigations in Chicago, by the way. Matters impacting their businesses nationwide. She has served as co-first chair before state and federal courts, represents clients in all phases of litigation. She has been listed as the rising star in general litigation by Illinois super lawyers since 2019. I'm not surprised. She's active in the firm and in the legal community. She's deeply committed to pro bono service. She represents pro bono clients in a variety of areas, ranging from employment law to civil rights action. Colette won the prestigious Excellence in Pro Bono Service Award in 2017, 2018, and 2019, presented by the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois and the Chicago chapter of the Federal Bar Association. She also was awarded the NGE Excellence in Pro Bono Award in 2017. She is devoted to improving diversity and inclusion in the legal profession and spends significant time mentoring diverse law students and attorneys, as well as writing and speaking about diversity and inclusion issues. She is a member of her firm's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Pro Bono Committee, and Summer Associate Hiring Committee. Are you running for president? Because I would vote for you, like 100% in line to vote for you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and it's such an honor to be here with you and also Dr. PJ, and with the Jamaican Connect, because I'm also Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica, and my family and I moved to this country when I was about 10. And I went to Boca High, and then I went on to Florida State University, taught at Boca High again with Professor Salerno under the leadership of Dr. PJ, and then I went on to law school. So there's definitely a big connection between the three of us. But following along with what Dr. PJ said, in my profession, in the legal profession, particularly private practice, there are not a lot of people that look like me. I was promoted to partner this year as of January 1st, and I am one of less than 1% of Black women who are partners in law firms. And the percentage is 0.87%. And so for me, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. I'm pretty sure I know almost all the Black women lawyers in Chicago and surrounding areas. I tend to be involved with organizations that really help to support Black women and Black people, because there are so few of us in the legal profession. I work at a law firm, Neil Gerber and Eisenberg. It has about 150 attorneys, and I'm a Black woman there, and there's also a Black male partner. So there are two of us. Throughout my career, and I've been there since 2013, for the most part, I was the only Black attorney there. We have about 300 total employees, 150 attorneys, and then 150 support staff, paralegals, technology professionals, assistants, et cetera. So, and many times I'm the only Black attorney in the room, in the courtroom. My firm is what we call big law because it has a lot of attorneys, and we focus on corporate matters. So we do a lot of what you say complex litigation. So we don't do criminal law really. We'll do some maybe white collar crimes, and we don't do smaller matters such as car accidents or anything like that. A lot of our clients are large companies and businesses who may be sued by other businesses or sued by individuals. And I practice litigation, which is a lot of what you see on TV. So I go to court quite often. Now it's more virtual court because of the pandemic. I argue motions, we have trials. I write briefs or legal arguments, which are not brief at all, usually very long. I take depositions, I do internal investigations. So I do a lot of litigation and in-court work, but my firm has many different divisions. We have labor and employment, focuses a lot on issues that relate to, HR. We also have a department that focuses on what we term intellectual property, so protecting our clients' copyright, trademarks. You've seen Coming to America, the McDowells of the world who try to, form their own non-McDonald's. So we represent clients like that against other companies that try to infringe on their intellectual property. And so, especially in that area, when it comes to sophisticated cases such as that, I could be in a room with 20 other attorneys and I'm the only one that looks like me. And so that's why I'm very, very, very much involved in diversifying the legal profession, because as Professor Stacy said, we represent clients who look like us. And so if you don't have an attorney that understands you, understand what you're going through, you can't explain everything. And there's certain experiences we have as Black people, Black women, people of color, that you can't, put it into words. It's so much easier when somebody just gets it. And I see that a lot in my pro bono work. And so my firm generally doesn't take on criminal matters, but I do with my pro bono work. So I will work on wrongful conviction matters. So I'll work with the local law schools with clients, almost always people of color who have been wrongfully convicted. Many of them have been in prison for years, decades. And so we will work on their matter. We will get them a new trial or somehow get their conviction overturned. I also do a lot with housing inequality, because that's also a very big issue, especially here in Chicago, where we have winters. To be homeless is horrible. To be homeless in a Midwest winter is just, it's inhumane. So I will take on a lot of that work, and working in a firm the size of mine, it really helps me because I have a lot of resources that I can definitely help people in underserved communities. But as a Black woman, I've been practicing since 2013. I went to the University of Chicago, and there were about maybe 230 law students and 10 identified as Black. So it's always been just a few of us. And as I said, at my firm for many years, I was the only Black attorney there. Usually when I go into courtrooms, especially federal court, it's me and maybe the clerk. I'm often mistaken for the clerk. It doesn't matter what I wear. I usually am in a full suit. I'll have a designer bag. I'll have a designer shoe. I mean, if you really looked at me, it would be very clear what my position is. But it doesn't matter what I wear. It doesn't matter what I do. It's not even an assumption, because there's nothing wrong with being a clerk. There's nothing wrong with being an assistant. The issue is you wouldn't think of me as anything else. And so I've been, asked to identify myself when nobody else. There could be a white male attorney in jeans and a t-shirt that would be able to go ahead of me, because the assumption is, he must be an attorney. I've stood in front of judges and introduced myself, Colette Wagarin, on behalf of ABC client. And, the judge has been like, oh, don't say anything, wait for your attorney. I am the attorney. No, I am the attorney. And I mean, it's just, this back and forth that would not happen to anyone else, or even with opposing counsel. I'll come in, introduce myself, and they'll want to wait for the white male lawyer. I'm like, it's me. I am it. There's nobody else to talk to. I'm the decision maker. And so it's, the waste of time, the waste of resources, and it's humiliating. And I mean, especially when I was a more junior attorney, and some of the comments just really, really shocked me. And of course, as I've matured and kind of not really toughened my skin, but just really and just honestly so used to it that I just have a quick comeback, which it's a small community of lawyers, so I will see you again and I will remember. and so but things like that I have to deal with, and that other attorneys have to deal with, is just really a reason why I'm definitely committed to improving diversity and access to the legal profession.
Thank you for that, for sharing, these tough experiences that I imagine no matter how thick your skin gets, it's cumulative, right? Awesome. So before I open the floor for questions, I want to ask both of you if you have any advice for young people who may be interested in, going into education, going into law. I know I have a lot of students who are interested in social work, which is connected to the law, right? We have social workers that work in the system. If you have any general advice for them.
Well, for me, for education, you're definitely not going into it for the money. It has to be for the love of working with a child and molding them and helping them find a way through education to make a better way for themselves. So they don't have to be with Colette and have her services and that part. And I think back to my time at Boca High, my kids who had a hard time in high school behaviorally, it started when I peeled back the layers because they had a hard time reading. They had a hard time getting that educational foundation in elementary school. So we need people who look like me, who look like you, Stacy, who look like anybody, but who has a heart that wants to work with children. It's not easy work. It's not clean work. It's dirty work. But if you have a heart to work with children, not even as a teacher, as a mentor, we have so many people that we could use mentors. I need male mentors for my children out here. So if you have time to do that and you don't want to be a teacher, definitely reach out to a school, reach out to me and come mentor because we need it. We need it, but we need someone, we need to change the cycle and change it and let kids know that there's hope through things outside of being an athlete and being a rapper, but through your mind. Your mind's going to open the door for everything.
Thank you. That was amazing. Well said. Yes, Colette.
Well, there's definitely money here in the legal profession, but it takes a while to get here. It takes a while to get here. I mean, law school is 3 years. It's grueling at times, but it's definitely worth it. And there's not money in every area of law. I mean, there's definitely people that focus on the private sector, but also for where I volunteer for pro bono services, there are other attorneys that, practice civil rights 100%. So you can still make a difference. I think for me in private practice, I'm able to make more of a difference because I have those resources from my firm. And it can be hard at times, but there are definitely people who, as Dr. PJ said, will help and mentor you. I would not be here today without my mentors. None of them have looked like me because the numbers are, there's 1%. So there's not enough partners of color to mentor every associate of color. So I would say if you're interested in law school, I don't regret going to law school. I do not regret becoming a lawyer. It's a great profession. Thankfully, it's the last degree I will ever need. And so I really enjoy it. You can work in so many different areas, even if it's not, you can work in public service, you can work in the government, you can work for the school district, you can do private law, you can do so many things with it. But it also is the same thing about finding a mentor, finding someone to help you and to guide you, which is why I mentor as many people that I can. And I recruit other attorneys too, attorneys who don't look like me, but still have that experience that they can share. So I would definitely say it's a great profession. We need more people of color. We need more women to diversify. So it's easier for future generations that are coming behind us.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. And I say this in my classes all the time, get out there, be the next XYZ, vote. Run for some kind of office, right? Run for your local offices. We need more representation where people are making the major decisions, where people are legislating. So absolutely. We have our first student question. Isabella's asking, can you share an experience that you found hard and maybe frustrating, but that you used to make you stronger? Any specific experience that, and either one of you can answer this.
So I think one experience is when I was working as an associate in my current law firm, working with a difficult attorney. I think it was, both different personalities. I think there's definitely some implicit bias at play as well. people of color are writing as judged differently. And there's been so many studies, I'm sure you all know about this with sociology. You'll give someone, the same paper, but you'll put a name that they may identify with a Black person versus a name they identify with a white person. They find 100 different, errors in the Black person's paper, but 5. So there was a lot of things at play there. And it was very difficult, but we got through the case, took a break, and then he asked if I wanted to work with him again. And I really had to think about it, whether or not it would be, in my best interest. But I decided to, because I think that's also a way that will create change. Not to excuse his behavior, but it was very implicit. And I feel as if the more senior that I am, I'm able to explain to him like what the issues are in a non-confrontational way, because as Dr. PJ said, you don't want to be the angry Black woman or the person that's always talking about diversity issues. So I felt like that probably made us both stronger in being able to come back to the table after time had passed to talk about the issues, and for me to listen to what he had to say too, because it's a two-way street. Right. So I felt like that made both of us stronger, and now we actually work together quite often. So I hope in the future he'll have a different experience when he, works with somebody that looks like me, and he can identify what his unconscious and implicit biases are.
Awesome. Yes, go ahead.
For me about that one, I think I can think back to my times at Boca High. When I was at Boca High, I was the only, at that time, I was one of 2 Black assistant principals. And I worked with all the kids who were ESC. And I was young, I was 29, and I was the new face out there. And I found that every child of color who had a discipline problem was sent to me. And in the beginning, I was like, okay, I can fix everybody, I can solve all the issues. And then it became too overwhelming, and I got mad. I'm like, I cannot be the person of color's assistant principal when there are 7 other assistant principals out here. We all have to look at what my strengths are and what your strengths are. And we have to have some conversations about things that I'm doing with the children of color where they feel comfortable coming to me, and what you're not doing. Because if I'm dead and gone, you still need to have that skill set to work with the children. And I had to make a conscious effort to send the children to the other assistant principals, and then to say, you know what, I want to work with other children of other colors too. I can't just be the Black or children of color assistant principal. And that was hard for me because the kids were clinging on to me and they wanted it to be me. And I had to push some of them away, not physically, but to go to have other experiences because I needed to be outside of just me. I think it got better over time. But that was hard for me because I wanted to fix every one of color's problems. But I'm one person and I couldn't do that with a school that had 3,000 kids. And then the next question about architecture field, male dominated field. You're gonna have to just work extra hard, all eyes are gonna be on you, but I definitely think you need to find a mentor that you can trust, that you can go to for advice, and know that it's tough. You may have some injustices as a woman in that field, but don't let it stop what you wanna do. Because if that's your vision and that's your purpose, you do it. You have to have tough skin, you have to fight, you gotta work extra hard, but you get it done and get a mentor and get a good support system. Your family has to be a good support system, some fellow colleagues, you just got to have a good support system. I have a team of sisters, 4 girlfriends that I call them every night and we do our little therapy session. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to get through this COVID principalship that I'm dealing with right now.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that was, the question was, I'm looking into architecture and it's a male dominated field. What advice would you provide to a female that is embarking on this journey? That was great. Colette, did you want to add anything to that?
I completely agree with what Dr. PJ said. It applies in the law as well, the legal profession too. I mean, women, if you add up all women of color, white women, everyone, we're still just, there's not any equity at all, especially the higher level that you go to, and especially in litigation and in court. So you definitely need a mentor. your mentor will likely be a man, because you need somebody who is at a high level in your field that can tell you and show you what you need to do. And, unfortunately, I'm sure it's the same architecture. The higher up you go, the less women there are. But like Dr. PJ said, you also need your close circle that's going to help and support you. And you also need to know the difference between your mentor, your sponsor, and your friends. So for me, my sponsor is not my friend and is not my mentor. I don't go to him. I don't cry to him. I don't complain to him. His job is to get me the best cases, to put me in front of people I need to be in front of. He is getting me work. So you want to be careful not to cross those lines. That's his job. My mentor now will kind of help me to navigate like conversations I can be very open with. I can tell how I feel and it won't be, used against me to be like, oh, Colette, she just can't cut it. And then there's my friends. I can tell everything that's going on, except for things that are privileged since I am a lawyer, but I can just be like, I can't stand working with this person. Like, I need to cry, I need your help. So you want to know those relationships and the difference, because especially in a male-dominated field, you may be comfortable with your coworkers, you still want to keep that in mind as a person of color and as a woman. And you definitely need a sponsor. You need someone who is, not there for you to cry on their shoulder, but their sole purpose is to make sure you are getting the experience that you need. And that also will make especially male sponsors more comfortable. Like, this is exactly what I'm doing. But you want to separate who those people are in any type of career, because you don't want to cross those lines. And your sponsor's there to get you work and you tell them you can do it, even though you are allowed to have feelings and emotions. That's not the person you should go to for that. You don't want to go to your mentor to complain about everything going on at the job, because every job has issues. So you want to be careful in navigating those relationships and have, clear understanding of who those people are in your life.
One thing I want to add, though, you talked about mentors. I was fortunate enough to have a Black female mentor, and she was the first principal in Boca in the 70s. And unfortunately, she died last week. So, that mentorship was important, but I was lucky that my first mentor was someone who looked like me, which was a rarity. Thank you. For your condolences. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. We have another question from student Raymond. He asks, what inspired you both to go into the field of work or the work field you are in right now?
Well, I was pre-med when I went to University of Florida, and I had to take a class, elective called Exceptional People. And for that class, I had to volunteer, and I volunteered at a juvenile detention center in Gainesville, working with kids who had been, it was an alternative school, working with kids who had been thrown out of the regular school system. I volunteered. A sub was there that day. A fight broke out. The sub got injured. They had to call 911. And I said, I love this. I want to come back. And they thought I was crazy. And I then changed my major to special ed when I worked with kids with emotional handicaps and behavioral disorders. And I just kind of fell in love with it by chance. So I'm a doctor, but not the doctor I was supposed to be.
I beg to differ. You are the doctor you're supposed to be.
That is true.
You're making so much difference. So much.
Thank you.
And then I think we have time for one more question. I agree, Raymond, not crazy at all. Tatiana asks, how do you firmly and respectfully respond to the assumptions without being seen as aggressive? So assumptions about racial assumptions. How do you address that without being seen as aggressive?
Well, I can be snotty at times when it's necessary. Normally, I would introduce myself as Joan Pierre-Jerome, but there have been situations where people kind of look down at me, and I have to make sure they know I'm Dr. Joan Pierre-Jerome. But I've learned to just pause. Sometimes you have to let people say things and pause. And I think by pausing, they kind of think about what they said. And for me, I have to pause to make sure that my face is right, my thoughts are together, so that I can always come across as professional. It's hard. So there are some times, you can get in your feelings, but it's really been a testament to my religious beliefs. I pray a lot. And you just have to remain calm and know that it's not personal. Sometimes people are that's just their ignorance. And it's not always easy, but prayer is a beautiful thing for me.
I definitely agree with the pausing and taking a second. I think for me as a litigator, since I argue for for a living, for me it's just showing them that I'm the better one. I mean, it's usually people that will start with the assumptions. It's coming from such a small place, and it's also coming from their insecurity, because they'll look at my background, they'll look at my school, they'll look at my firm, and so all they have to do is try to insult me, and then we get before the judge, and it's so I think it speaks for itself. And for me, I have a little bit more leeway because I'm literally arguing for a living. So, when it comes up, it's usually within this case. And so I argue like I'm trained to do. But as Dr. PJ said, I still have to watch the face and sometimes just take a pause, because honestly, sometimes it's not worth it for me. I get paid by the hour, actually by the 6 minutes. So I'm not going to waste my client's time or money just going back and forth. And sometimes just ignoring the argument just irks them even more.
That's funny, Dr. Stacy. I see Yaramar's comment. I grew up in New York before I came to Florida, and it's so true. I didn't experience that in New York. New York, we were a melting pot. My street had Italian, Spanish, everybody. It was not until I came to Florida that I experienced it, because my family ate different food. I talked a little bit different. I was a different type of Black. It wasn't until I came to Florida that I personally experienced it. So that was very interesting that Yaramar said that comment.
Yeah, so there are regional differences, Yaramar, right? To how people, to biases that people have, right? In certain regions, it's much more in your face, right? Whereas, in other regions, it's non-existent. Like you said, in New York City, it's a melting pot, so you're less likely to come across that. That's amazing. I guess, well, you know what, we have time for one more, and I think it's kind of similar to what you had just said, but Yanaman is asking, what advice do you suggest when facing these struggles?
I think our actions just have to educate people. I mean, just the way you respond, the way you conduct yourself, it will change stereotypes. And I know my purpose and what I'm here to do. And, hopefully by my actions and my track record, they'll see that I know what I'm doing, and I'm a good educator, and I'm here for all the children. So you just have to let your work speak for you. Let that be your legacy, your work.
Exactly. And having someone that you trust, that you can confide in, whether it's a significant other, your family, a therapist, and just realizing that your feelings are valid, because a lot of times you're like, wait, did that really happen? Like, it couldn't have, you'll drive yourself crazy or thinking about it after the fact and thinking, wow, I wish I'd said X, Y, Z. But also to remember that your feelings are valid. It's not a reflection of you, and to not take the burden. When I first started, I was like, I represent every Black woman. Like, I've got to be on it. I was wearing stockings, and it was just ridiculous. It was just ridiculous. I didn't want to get braids. It's like, I can't be the only Black attorney at my firm, and I have braids. It's too much sometimes. So I think just giving yourself that grace, that it can feel like you have to carry like your whole community on your shoulders, but also giving yourself grace, allowing yourself to feel those emotions, having a safe place to go and vent, and then, getting up the next day and going back at it. But I think it's also important to, take care of your own mental health, because it's a tough battle. It's a really tough battle sometimes.
That's funny that you mentioned hair, because as a principal in Boca, I don't know if I would do braids. It's funny that you said that. I don't know if I did. It was a big struggle for me to go natural. So we haven't had the hair conversation, Stacy, but that was
that's a whole different one.
That'd be a whole nother Zoom
That's
session.
a whole other hour.
But yeah, how you present yourself and how you look from head to toe is very important. Yes.
Yeah.
Having bays is another. Yeah, so that's the next Zoom, Stacy. We'll do a hair conversation.
Yes, absolutely. We need to have it. Absolutely. I am so honored. First of all, I love you two so much. Thank you so much for coming, for being a part of this. Colette, you're so far. I miss you, but we're gonna catch up. Thanks to all the students that came. This has been wonderful. I hope that, you know, everyone got something out of it. I'm sure you did. And, you know, if you have any other questions that you didn't think of maybe, or didn't come up, you can email me, and then I can always pass it along to Colette or Joan. I'm gonna put my email address for those of you who are not my students in here, so that if you do think of any other questions that you might have, you can email me and I will then pass it along to these amazing trailblazers. But thank everyone for coming. Have a wonderful evening. For everyone who's a student who's here, have a fantastic spring break next week, and stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Mwah.